You made it. You've arrived. This is Peter Levitan's Advertising Stories. And you're about to hear entertaining, personal, often instructive stories from deep inside the world of advertising.
Hi, this is Peter Levitan. Welcome to Advertising Stories. Today, we're going to talk to Joe Koufman of Setupan, an Atlanta-based marketing company, and we are going to tell you how to grow your advertising digital PR agency. Here we go. Joe Koufman, where are you?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta. So that was in the news. I don't want to be too specific to time with these podcasts, but let's just say last month you guys were on the front page, and now you're not on the front page anymore. Portland is.
There's all kinds of stuff going on in our nation right now, and we seem to be in the mix.
Yes. Well, I can tell you, watching it from Mexico is we'll call it interesting, as the Chinese say, the Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times. So we'll leave it at that. So here we go. We're going to talk about advertising today, strangely enough, because this podcast is called Advertising Stories, and I figure I should occasionally talk about advertising. You ran business development at a couple of agencies. Can you tell me what that felt like?
Yeah, I loved business development, and I still love business development. For me, my last agency, we were acquired by Publicis Group in 2013. We were about 42 million in revenue when we sold. And of that 42 million, I think I accounted in some way, shape, or form for probably 65% of that revenue from clients that I brought into the agency. And for me, when we got acquired, I thought about starting my own agency, but I really loved the chase. I loved the process of business development. I loved the practice of business development. Matchmaking is in my blood. There are 3 couples who have married as a result of me introducing them to each other. So it wasn't just a work thing, but it was for fun too. And for me, just the thrill of connecting 2 people that need each other, whether that's for business or romance, has always been intriguing.
And was that, so your approach to business development was helping clients fall in love with the agency?
Yeah, well, when I was doing it on the agency side, I was trying to get them to fall in love with our agency. And now at Setup, which I've been running for a little over 6 years, we connect brands and agencies together. So we're trying to help, connect the 2 in a meaningful relationship that benefits both groups.
Well, I'll tell you a very quick story, since of course this is called Advertising Stories. I bought an agency a few years ago. This is when I already owned an agency. We bought a second agency called Citrus. And what we got when we bought Citrus is a design firm that was very deep into Nike. And the reason we bought them was we got an office. We actually took their name. We liked their name better than ours. I had 2 new partners or junior partners. And people would say, well, how do you know Nike will stick around? Well, one of the partners was sleeping with the Nike client, actually living with the Nike client. So I knew that there was, let's call it a connection that wasn't about to be broken, right? So
chemistry, kinetic. There was a kinetic energy there between client and agency that was probably not going to be broken unless the relationship shattered.
And believe me, I took them to dinners. I had wine. I kept that relationship going. So they're still going long after I left. What was, if you could name one thing in business development that worked, what was it?
Well, I can't name one thing. I can tell you positioning the agency properly, putting the right infrastructure in place, and doing the proper outreach and closing were the 3 things that help us win a lot of great business. And by the way, while I was there at Engage, we won business from Hershey's, we won business from Hanes Brands. Cisco Systems, Newell Rubbermaid, AMC Theaters, Chick-fil-A. So some of the best, clients in the world. And I think positioning, setting up the infrastructure properly, and then outreach and closing were the three things.
And what was the positioning of Engaged? What was your point of difference?
I would say we were known as a tradigital agency. We were three agencies that got smashed together. So we were a traditional advertising agency, a direct marketing agency, and a digital agency that became one. Actually, Stan Rapp, who founded Rapp Collins in 1965, he was a real madman, went to private equity and bought three agencies that became Engage. And so we were one really early in social media. To give you a long answer to a short question, we were on the forefront of social media and helping clients really leverage social media.
What was the feeling when you were bought? So you're working at this company, all of a sudden somebody says to you, okay, we're being bought. Is that a good vibration, bad vibration, a nervous vibration? What did that feel like?
That was the third acquisition that I'd been through. And I can tell you that of the three acquisitions that I went through, one was done really well, one was done really poorly, and one was fine, mediocre. And when we ultimately were acquired by Publicis Group, I think it was the mediocre one. It wasn't so for me, it wasn't super exciting that we got bought, and it wasn't also disheartening. I just knew that I wasn't going to stick around for that much longer. It wasn't the same agency. Nothing wrong with the acquiring agency. It just wasn't the same one that I had joined 6 years earlier.
Yes. Well, I worked at Saatchi. I was not there when Publicis bought the agency, but I certainly saw it go downhill. I can't say it was because of Publicis, but just the vibrations again were not good. And c'est la vie. I guess that's it. What should an employee do? Well, I'm going to totally restate this. One of the things I like to say in my podcast is that when I make a mistake, I like to point it out so that nobody says, Jesus, he just made a mistake. I like to say that, I just made a mistake.
Peter, you make mistakes? What's wrong with you?
I want to own my mistakes. Today, how do I even ask this? Are there purchases today? Are companies being bought? Are you seeing that happening?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I think there's going to be a whole nother wave of additional acquisitions that happen as a result of economic times that we're going through now, which is there are some agencies that are struggling to, deal with certain industries and certain clients that are struggling, and therefore the agencies are prime candidates to be acquired.
And is that going both ways? Are people saying, and again, this is your experience, are people saying, I think I've had it, I'm 50 years old, I don't want to do this anymore? And on the other hand, there are people who are saying, gee, this might be an opportunity to scoop up the right agency to sort of fill in the blanks of my current agency. Is it going both ways?
Yes, except they're saying, I've had it, I'm 34, I'm done with this business. No, absolutely, both ways. I think that there are some agencies that are looking at this as a huge opportunity and are actually growing quite nicely, even in a down economic cycle. And then there are plenty of agencies that are feel like they have capped their growth and they're done. And I'm seeing their interest on both acquisitions and selling.
And is Setup involved in any of that?
We are, in that we've often introduced agencies to each other and made those connections. We haven't monetized it to make it part of our business yet. It may be something we look at down the road. We don't love the transactional part of the deal. It's not that interesting to me or to us, but the relationship aspect of it is hugely important to us.
Okay.
In other words, so one of the agencies we're working with, for example, wants to be in some different markets. That they're based in the Midwest and they want to have presence in the Southeast. They're looking for agencies that might have interesting clients, but also give them a new office in a market they want to be a part of.
Well, that's certainly one of the things that people look for. I'm a huge fan of this idea of expertise. And, if I'm a social media company, but I find some guys that are very good pay-per-click or search engine marketing people, and they somehow fit into my puzzle, that would be appealing to me. And, that kind of a purchase where it's additive. And I certainly understand the geography. In fact, I discuss geography a lot in this book that I'm writing about buying agencies, because some agencies, like the one that I sold in Portland, I knew would only be bought by Seattle, Portland, or a San Francisco agency, because we were too much of a generalists. Okay, so to move on, so tell me what you guys do to help agencies mate. I think this is your word. I'm going to keep using it. Mate with clients. What is that process?
Well, the word we usually use is matchmakers. We're marketing matchmakers. And the reality is clients look at us as a search consultant that they don't have to pay. And agencies look at us as an augment to their business development efforts. So there are essentially 4 services that we offer for agencies. One is a business development training seminar where we teach business development, kind of half-day workshop. One is a marketing diagnostic where we'll look at all of the agency marketing materials, website, social, their overall message, outbound emails, things like that, and give them constructive criticism to improve. We have an agency assessment where we go really deep to survey all of the current, former, and clients that didn't select the agency, to understand truly what they think the agency is great at and what they think the agency is not so great at. But we also survey key staff within the agency and pair that together and build a SWOT analysis so that we can help the agency know what their biggest strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are. And we require that agency assessment service before we'll consider doing our sustainable pipeline, which is where we actually go out and find brands that are looking for agency support to make introductions. So 4 key services: business development training, marketing diagnostic, agency assessment, and sustainable pipeline.
And I have to assume that the agencies, when they hear what you just said, start to focus on the last element, which is, okay, when are you going to go out and find me a date?
Yeah, they often do focus on the sustainable pipeline, the matchmaking part of what we do. But the reality is we also have agencies that are hiring us just for one of the other 3 services. And of course, we do require that agency assessment before we'll go into sustainable pipeline. And the reason we require it is it actually does 3 things. Number one, it helps the agency learn new things about themselves that they would never learn otherwise. Number 2, we uncover opportunity when we do that service, because we sneak a question into the survey that says something like, well, what do you wish this agency would do for you or could do for you? And often their answer to that question is something that the agency actually could do. And then thirdly, it helps us really get underneath the hood with the agency to understand what truly makes them special and unique, so that when we're out, finding opportunity for them, we're matching them with the perfect kind of opportunity, that fits what that agency does well.
Right. Well, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. Excuse me. The way he put it was, it's hard to read the label from inside the jar.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point there, when we ask clients and staff questions, they give us much more candid answers than they ever give the agency directly. So a lot of agencies will ask their clients what they think, and they'll get kind of an NPS score, the net promoter score of on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this agency to a friend or colleague, or my agency to a friend or colleague? And they're not getting as candid an answer as when we ask the questions as a disinterested third party, outsider asking the questions.
Are there sort of key requests that clients are looking for? Can you lump them together, or is every client completely different?
Usually they're looking for two things. Either there's a capacity challenge or there's a capability challenge. And by capacity challenge, I mean the client doesn't have enough arms and legs to do all of the marketing projects that they need to get accomplished. And a capability challenge is we're really good at these 3 or 4 things as a marketing team, but we really need help with these other several things that aren't in our wheelhouse. Either they're not in our wheelhouse, or they're not in our agency of records wheelhouse, or even we don't have a specialist for that. And so we're finding that the client is either looking to bolster their capacity or they're looking for some specific capability.
Has that changed since March?
No, not the actual, well, to an extent. The actual disciplines they're looking for hasn't changed. Certainly, there are some industries that are winners and some industries that are losers. For example, travel and hospitality has been hurting. One of our agencies works with a big theme park, big, national theme parks, and their business is way, way, way down, actually non-existent. But they also work with a company that makes tissue and toilet paper, and a company that makes nasal spray to clear up clogged nasals. And so industry-wise, they've got, they're busy in some categories and not busy in other categories. But the one other thing I would add, though, is that either you're in one of those busy industries where you need extra marketing support from an agency, or you're in an industry that may be down a little, and you may have furloughed a large chunk of your staff, your marketing staff, and so you need agency support because you're down several people.
You're helping on a sort of a 360 kind of perspective here. Do you have a database of people that you can call on to help agencies?
Yes.
Okay.
When you say call on to help agencies,
well, I'll give you an example. A friend, I try to stay friendly with the agencies I know. At least a good chunk of them are still my friends, guys I know in the business. And I have an agency in LA that's a PPC agency that just built me a landing page, which was nice. And I haven't had a chance. He sent it to me this morning. Sent me, take a look at this. Tell me what you think. It's an outbound marketing tool. And I looked at it and it was great. So I want to ask him, is this somebody in his office or somebody in the Philippines? The world has changed so much.
Yeah, right.
All right. So I imagine that when you work with an advertising agency, there are certain elements of the agency you have to spruce up.
Yeah. Well, that marketing diagnostic service that I mentioned is where we will critique agencies, marketing materials. And we're bluntly honest when we go through that assessment with them, that diagnostic with them, which is to say, your website stinks. For example, I'm kind of tired of hearing it over and over again, and we've all heard it in the business, cobbler's kids have no shoes, where an agency has shitty marketing materials or shitty website, and they're trying to sell marketing services. While we are not going to fix the problems that we find with that service, certainly we can recommend some resources if somebody needs some help fixing some of those problems. But I'll give you a microscopic example. One of the agencies we work with had an amazing blog post about why good marketing is just like a virus and how good marketing can really spread like a virus. And they had a nice image right on the homepage of their site of this virus, close-up of the virus. We recommended that they remove that image pretty quickly during this whole, pandemic that we're experiencing.
Right. Viral marketing has taken on a whole new. Okay. All right. You talk about chemistry. Well, let me phrase this. Occasionally, when a client gets down to 2 or 3 agencies, they're pretty similar, right? Smart
Yes.
people, glib, skilled, experienced. They know the right words to say.
Sorry, just a tiny bit of interruption. And, now, a word from our sponsor. Did you know that this is Peter Levitan's 25th podcast? Well, it is 25 in this post-May 2020 series. He has more from the past, but that is the past. On to the future. I am Arthur, Peter's AI assistant. I am tasked today with reminding you to subscribe to this podcast. and that you might want to tell your friends about advertising stories. New shows will include a deep discussion of African American advertising with a leading agency owner and a show about the shameful lack of diversity in today's advertising agency and marketing worlds. On a lighter note, Peter will be running a series on how and why you might want to prepare your marketing company for a sale. Even if you don't intend to sell tomorrow, attention to building a more valuable marketing agency is good for all the time. Back to the show.
And so I'm going to ask this question in two ways. One, how does chemistry play into that? And how can an agency be more chemically groovy? So let's start with that question.
Yeah. So I often say, I actually do a presentation about business matchmaking. And, I talk about compatibility and chemistry for romantic matchmaking. Compatibility looks good on paper, right? Checks all of the boxes. And chemistry is you meet each other in person and either there's that spark or there isn't. Well, if romantic matchmaking is about compatibility and chemistry, business matchmaking is about capability and chemistry. And I want to tell you a quick story because I know you love stories. Many years ago, I was pitching the chief marketing officer of a major health system, the largest health system in the Southeast. And I'm sitting in a meeting with the chief marketing officer and one of my colleagues. So it was the two of us and the chief marketing officer. And my colleague had her PhD in behavioral psychology, very, very smart, but slightly rigid, we'll say. And during the course of the conversation, the CMO said, I'm going to be picking my agency this afternoon. And I think it frustrated my colleague because she was prepared to create a proposal and send him off the proposal, a couple of days later. And I kind of nudged her and said, no, he's picking today. Like this is, and I got a chance to talk. We didn't win the business, but I got a chance to talk to him a year later. I ran into him and I asked him about that meeting. And what he said was, all of the agencies that I met with had been vetted by my team. They all had healthcare experience. They all had, enough capability to service our needs. And I want to make the assumption that all of the agencies had somewhat relatively similar bill rates, of average hourly blended rate that's probably similar for all of them. So at the end of the day, I want to pick an agency that I can work with, that I think my team can work with, that meshes well with my team. And so what he was saying was, all other things being somewhat equal, experience, capability, et cetera, I'm choosing based on chemistry. I love that, while it doesn't compute for everybody, particularly the woman that was with me on that pitch, chemistry is the huge deciding factor between all other things being equal.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. I'll even tell you a little story. I'll tell it quickly. A friend of mine was helping an agency in a pitch, and the agency's media director, who was one of the best in the business, was not good at presenting. And she would get nervous and start sweating, it was, worst case scenario. So they didn't bring her to the pitch, even though media was a key element of what they were talking about. But they held up a poster with her picture on it, and they read a note from her. And she said, I would love to be there, but I have to tell you this, I'm a great media planner and director, but I can't do presentations. So I hope you don't mind. She just went down that road for a little bit. And the client thought it was incredibly charming.
Huh.
Honest, charming. I'll send you, or maybe I'll even put in the notes. I had it in my book on pitching. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting story. How do you solve a problem like that? Because we say often, bring your best presenters, right? Well, sometimes you're leaving somebody at home who it might be the database guy, and you can probably get away with a sweaty, kind of weird, nerdy database guy.
They all are.
Yeah, they all are. I mean, actually, if somebody came in a Savile Row suit, with an English accent, that might be disturbing to people. So,
right.
Okay, all right.
Well,
So,
one other just thing related to this. One of the things that we do to prepare an agency, so in our business development training, we talk about call and meeting prep. And before you step into that meeting, there are things you should and could do to be prepared. So for example, for the decision makers that are to be in the meeting, are you doing a call planning or a meeting planning worksheet where you look at, is this person new to their role or are they established in the role? Are they a sophisticated marketer or are they unsophisticated? Are they a specialist or are they a generalist? You know, specialist, they're focused on email marketing. Generalist is VP of marketing, right? Are they in a high pressure role or low pressure? Is the company publicly traded, for example? Are they very experienced in the industry or inexperienced? And are they experienced working with agencies or not? And by answering some of those questions up front, I think it helps you get into the operating reality of that person and understand their perspective. There are two things that I think are hugely important for business development for an agency. Curiosity is the number one thing, and empathy is the other thing. You know, curiosity, I want to understand your business. I think it's interesting, you know. And then secondly, empathy. Like, can I put myself in the shoes of that marketer who's experiencing some kind of pain or some kind of issue that's leading them to potentially hire an agency to solve a problem? And curiosity and empathy are two super powerful tools. But I do like the idea of preparing for the meeting, because while you can't create the chemistry that we talked about, you certainly can put in the work and lay the groundwork to set the stage for chemistry.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that you did something that I did when I was at Saatchi, even actually when I owned my own agency, and I'll use these weird words. We created a war room where in the war room, we would have the persona of the client that we were going to pitch. So we tried at least to understand who this person is, and to sort of meet what we think are their needs, pain points, and so forth. Well, Joe, I want to thank you a lot. I think there's a ton of information here that will be helpful to agencies that are I divide agencies into thirds these days. The ones that are really going to kick ass, the ones that'll continue to just sort of surf along, and I'll be kind and just say the other third. So
if I could, if anybody is interested in talking more about any of these subjects, they can reach us at setup.us. Or all of our social media properties are Setup Says, so SETUPSAYS. And, happy to talk more, either agency or clients that are interested in the chase, the connection that happens between brands and agencies. We live and breathe that every single day.
Cool. Well, I know clients need help. They're a little worried at the moment. Confused, worried, all those things that one would consider would be a pain point that an agency could meet. So I will definitely also put some information in the show notes. So I thank you. I don't know what people do in Atlanta. I guess you guys eat barbecue or do something like that. You have very good hip hop down in Atlanta, right?
We do. Hip hop capital of the world.
Well, I won't tell LA that. I don't want any fights. Okay.
No, there's none of that. None of that. It's all, Southern hospitality is a large part of the environment here.
Very good. All right. Well, we'll see y'all sometime.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Peter.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, folks. That was Joe Koufman of Setup, an Atlanta-based marketing company. They specialize in being marketing matchmakers between advertising agencies and clients. That is a sweet promise. Speaking of Atlanta, by the way, before I get to Atlanta, do me a favor. Please tell your friends about Advertising Stories. The more friends, the merrier. And speaking of friends, I want to thank my Atlanta-based production crew, Ludacris, Lil Baby, and Travis Scott. Thank you, folks, for making this show possible. See y'all soon.